probably also knows he's wrong. So don't chastise people in public. It's a very big mistake. So if you go into the kitchen and find out the kitchen is a mess, write it down in your mind or on a piece of paper. Talk with kitchen head about getting cleanliness standards together. Just go in and smile. Tell everybody, Haribol, how are you? Keep up the good work. Everything's great. But make notes. Kitchen's a mess. Pots are dirty. Fan is broken. Why don't they have this together? What's wrong with them? And then talk about it later with the person privately. That's another way to do it. Another way to do it is through spies. Now, I know this is not necessarily a very popular subject matter, and it's not even a public one. But any good leader has a very well-developed network of spies. He knows what's going on all over the place because he's got people who tell him. And people may tell you things for various reasons. You know, you may delegate somebody, let me know what's going on over there. Or somebody may come, do you know what they're doing over there? Or so many different variables of that. So these are three ways you can monitor things. In any case, you've got to know what's going on. That's the point. And then you can make modifications. I jumped into how to accomplish things. We're talking about leadership now, and now we're talking about leadership in the question of how to accomplish things. So I'll just step back for a second and talk about how to accomplish things, and most of what we've already said is part and parcel of that. Good leadership means you'll accomplish things. Prabhupada said in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that government without leadership is a farce. You must have a person to make things work. That's why in the Vedic system there was a king. He made it work. And he had his chief minister who knew how to make it work. And together they made it work. It was a person. You don't find all these systems and structures in Vedic government. Of course, Bhishma Dev in the Mahabharata, when he's talking to Maharaj Yudhisthira, gives the structure within which you can organize the world, an empire. He gave the structure by which an empire can be organized. And actually, this is another subject, but Prabhupada's creation of ISKCON is very similar to that instruction of Bhishma Dev for creating an empire. It's very hierarchical, and it works in the same way. But it works on persons. The instructions of Bhishma Dev, maybe one chapter on the empire, and there's something like 400 chapters on the qualities of kings, how they should work, how they should deal with their chief ministers, how they should protect the women, how they should take care of the children, protection, and all these things. It's the quality of the leader that makes things work. That's why everything worked when Prabhupada was here. When Prabhupada was here, the management in a lot of cases was worse than horrible, but still things worked because Prabhupada was there, leading it with his vision and his inspiration. We were ready to do anything for him, and therefore it went and it worked. Even if you have the best system and structure, if you don't have proper persons making it work, it cannot work. That's a very simple, basic principle. So leadership is essential. Now, when you're going to do this leadership, you have to accomplish things. So now we're in the second section, which is how to accomplish things. There are two things in accomplishing things that are very important. There's the inspiration behind it, and then there's the systematic hard work to the creation of the execution of that inspiration. Inspiration is a very short, in terms of time, it takes a short time. It's a flash of inspiration. It may be developed mentally in the head, but then one has to execute that inspiration and make it work. If you think you can just have inspiration and write a paper and the whole world is going to fall at your feet, well, then you're a pie-in-the-sky Brahmana. You have to have inspiration and then work to get it done in a systematic way. Now, obviously, this may not happen by the same person. The same person with the inspiration, and this may be different from the persons with the systematic work. But a good leader will get the inspiration, or will get the inspiration from others. Another quality of a good leader is he can recognize a good idea when he hears it. I know many mediocre people who you can tell all kinds of wonderful ideas to, and it goes straight over their head. Either they don't understand it and don't admit it, or they don't understand it and do admit it. Either way, it's useless. Or they think, oh, I've heard that before, and don't understand how it's the key to something wonderful. Or they think that, well, this is useless, because they can't understand how it is wonderful. Many different factors are there to rejecting a good idea. But a good leader, a sharp leader, a person who gets things done very fast and accomplishes a lot, is somebody who, when he hears somebody say something good, jumps on it. That was a fantastic idea. Let's develop that. When you hear a great idea, you say, stop everything, let's develop it. Now, there are many ways you can deal with that. You can say, you please go and write that down in a nice way and develop it on your own, and then we'll talk about it. Or you can say, let's talk about it right now, and write down whatever we can, and develop it in that way. But the most important thing is to hear something good and know it. You have to recognize some good idea when you hear it. If you can't recognize a good idea when you hear it, then every idea has to come from your own head. And that means you are very limited. If every idea has to come from your own head, that means that 85% of all good ideas are automatically rejected. Because most good ideas come from other people's heads. You have to, when you hear it from others, you have to take that idea and you say, oh, and that means this. Let's say you're in a group and you're brainstorming. This we're going to get to, meetings. One of the most important aspects of meetings is brainstorming. Somebody comes up with an idea. Somebody says, what about that? And somebody says, let's take this further, and let's move like this. And gradually you develop a concept which no one person could have thought of, but because different good ideas were there, it was going on. One of the things you can do in a brainstorming session is you just write down on paper or a computer every idea that comes out. Let's say we have what we want to accomplish. How to increase book distribution all over the world. Then we have, let's say, 10 people in the room. Then we say, okay, everybody start throwing out ideas how this could be done. So Bhakta Joe says this, and Das says this, and Devi Dasi says that, and we're just writing it all down. We don't accept when somebody says, that's no good. We don't accept that. We say that's out of order. We write down everything, good or bad, better or worse, everything. We don't question it, we don't argue it, we don't talk about it. We're just brainstorming. We're just writing down everything. In order not to get hung up. I've seen incredibly good ideas be destroyed because the person who said them made a little mistake in the way he presented it. Just a little mistake. And then somebody jumps down his throat on that point, the little point, and then somebody else argues about that. Somebody else defends him against the other one. Somebody else has another idea completely, and you've lost the wonderful idea which was there originally. This is called parliamentary procedure. It's a wonderful way to get everything screwed up. Now, I've heard that we don't really know what parliamentary procedure is. Maybe one day I might change my mind, but this is what I've seen. That if somebody raises his hand and says this, and then somebody raises his hand and says that, and this is not the way to run meetings. To get inspiration, try to gather ideas. Just gather as many ideas as you can. Write them all down. Don't reject any one of them. Even if it's strange and it's weird and it's off base, just write it all down. Worry about it later. Analyze them all later. Put them in a different form. Try to figure out if there's some cohesion between them. If they fall into patterns, if they fall into different ideas, if they imply even a greater solution. Inspiration requires some systematic thinking. Let's say I have an inspiration, this idea, but that's not the end of it. That may imply 10 other ideas. But in order for that to happen, we have to be systematic about the way we collect ideas and deal with ideas. So inspiration is like that. It's the thing that sparks everything, and the sweat behind all the activities, the actual work to get it accomplished, is a part and parcel of the process. Okay, so I put down here the steps required to accomplish things. First of all, you have to have the vision. We talked about this. I'll just review it. The vision should be nicely developed. The vision should bring others on board. In other words, everybody should feel a place in that vision. You should develop the team feeling. Not that this vision is one man's show. It should be a team thing, that everybody has a place on the team. Not that, and a team means that everybody's a working member of the team. Not that some people just go for the ride. They're on board, but they just go for the ride, like being on board the boat or the train and go for the ride. We want you on board as a working member of the team. We must see how there is something in it for everyone. Everybody has to get something out of it. Something either spiritual or philosophical or material, maybe money, or maybe self-satisfaction, or maybe the satisfaction of others. Something you get out of it, something. Otherwise people, they're not very motivated. Just like Prabhupada, he got everybody to do everything because we wanted to satisfy him. That's the most perfect motivating factor. And because we got that out of all his works, we wanted to serve him. So, therefore, we should just try to find a way in which everybody gets something. And then, the most important part of vision is to satisfy everyone's deepest desires. This is something which very rarely people understand. Because just like all the devotees in this movement, we all have very deep desires. We desire to become Krishna conscious, and we desire to spread this all over the world. We desire to make things work nicely. These are deep desires. We have to actually show how the vision of what we're trying to do satisfies those desires. That's the most important thing. Not that we're just trying to make some money or something like that. And maybe some specific desires as well. Then comes general planning. This comes even before strategy. You have to figure out whether this vision has any possibility whatsoever of being done. It's called a mental feasibility study. Now obviously when you want to actually execute a strategy, you have to do very detailed feasibility studies, economic, managerial, and so on. But this is before you get to that point. You make a mental feasibility study. Is it at all possible? Can we do this or not? And if we can, let's figure out how. And if we can't, let's not waste our time. A mental feasibility study. So you ask in the mind, what is needed? When is it needed? Who can do it? How can it be done? Where will it be done? What are the economic needs? How will these be met? These are just the how, when, where, why, where, and all these questions that you have to ask whenever you do something. But you do it in your mind, and you just figure out if you can get some answer to it. Yeah? Just like if you want to do Sankirtan in Madagascar. So that's a great idea. It's a wonderful idea to do Sankirtan in Madagascar. But if there's nobody to do it, then personally I wouldn't even bother thinking about it. I have other things to do. But if there was a guy, some bhakta over here, who actually wanted to go to Madagascar, or you thought maybe he would be nice to go to Madagascar, or maybe he came from Madagascar, but maybe there's just some wild idea that we could get somebody to go to Madagascar, if it's feasible somehow or another, if it makes a little sense, and all the other questions make some sense, and it all starts to become a little bit clearer, because when you have these visions, they're like cloudy. How to make them happen? It's a cloud. And what you try to do is make it a little clearer. And if you can see something in that cloud that makes it seem like it'll work, then you say, I'm going to try it. I'm going to go for it. And then you figure out how to do it. But if you can't get some sense out of it, you don't go for it. Just like when Prabhupada said in 74 to start Varnashram College. Devotees couldn't get in that cloud, they couldn't get some grasp on something clear enough to make it happen. Therefore, it never happened. Prabhupada commented it wasn't the right time. Therefore, it didn't happen. Because things also have to be done at the right time. When you have an idea whose time has come, no one can stop it. But if you have an idea who is premature in time, then no one can make it work. It'll always be a disaster. So doing the right thing at the right time is an essential part of leadership. So if you find out that your mental feasibility study has some hope, there's some hope there, then you make a list of goals. What do we want to accomplish? Overall goals, time-bound goals, far future, near future, some specific goals, and you write them all down. When you have your vision, you have a little bit of faith you can make it work, you make some goals, then you get into the strategy. How exactly you're going to make it work. You have to make a scheme by which the goals can be accomplished. If you don't have goals, it's very difficult to accomplish anything. If I just sent somebody out here into the field out there, and I said, you know, figure some project out. Just figure some project out. What are you going to do? You go out and you look at the sugarcane field, and you look at the grass where the buffaloes are eating, and you look at the little girl with the stick in her hand saying Hari Bol, and you say, figure a project out? You have to have goals. Go out in that field and figure out where the temple is going to be located. It's a goal. It's something concrete. You have to give people concrete things to think about, to do. It's essential to have goals, to know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. And if you don't know where you're going, even if you got there, you wouldn't even know it. You got to know where you're going. And then you figure out how to accomplish those goals. And the most important thing is that every scheme needs a person to make it work. Let's say the goal is to figure out the siting of the temple. Let's say we make a resolution. Figure out the siting of the temple. And that's all we do. We all go away after the meeting and we think, well, we've done everything. And then later on somebody says, didn't we figure out that we should figure out the siting of the temple? And then the other people go, yeah, sure, we did that. Somebody should have done that. Oh yeah, somebody. Yeah, that's right. Somebody should have done it. But nobody did it. This is what goes on. Anybody could do it. It's not so difficult. But nobody ever did it. So somebody can't do nothing. You got to pick a person. If you make a plan and say, go site the temple, you've got to say, Das is going to do it. And Das is going to report to this other Das at this time. If you don't do like that, nothing's going to happen. You have to make a person and a time and a place. Everything has to be arranged for him. And if he needs assistance, you have to line up the assistants or help him line up the assistants. And thus, the mental feasibility study has to be turned into a real feasibility study, where you figure out what it will cost to do this, whether this is the best plan or maybe other plans are better, and so on. This is big time management when it comes to feasibility studies, so I won't get into it too much there. But whenever you're going to do something, if it's in your temple, I'll bring it down to the temple. If it's in your temple and you want to make, again, bliss bar business, you should make a feasibility study. And that should be, how much can I make a bliss bar for? How much can I sell it on the street? How much will it cost me to sell it on the street? And how much profit will I get from each bliss bar? And how much volume of bliss bars can I sell? This is called feasibility study. When you find all those things out, then you can make a decision. You'll find out, well, to make a bliss bar costs $1, and I'll sell it for $1.20, and I'll only be able to sell 150 of them, so I'll only get about, $25 profit, so this is not a very good plan. Or, on the other hand, it could come up with a lot of profit, and then you say, it's a very good plan, let's do it. Or modify it somehow according to the feasibility study. For everything you do, there should be a feasibility study. That means research. Everything should be researched. Don't go off just because your head says it's fine. Figure it out, whether it's really fine or not. Then make decisions. If you just jump into something without figuring it out, then it's not going to work. You can know it for sure. Or if it does work, it's Krishna's mercy. Most of ISKCON works on Krishna's mercy. Then there's execution. You have to execute the plan. The plan goes into action. Now, whenever a plan goes into action, the first thing you know is going to happen is there's going to be problems. Right? You're going to run into problems. Now, if you see a problem, don't think that that's the end of the world. Usually what happens is this. Here's a problem. I go, my God, look at that problem. Everything's finished. We can't go on. We have to quit. Change everything. And one gives up. First thing, if a problem which is so mind-boggling hits you, look at it, put it down, and go chant Harikesha. Let it grow in your head. Let it gradually infiltrate in your brain. And when you're no longer scared to death of it, then look at it. If when you're scared to death of a problem, you try to deal with it, you know it's not going to work. You have to be able to have some confidence that I can deal with this problem. It may mean you have to break it up into different sections, because problems are sometimes real big. So you may have to break it up into different sections and think about this part of the problem today, and that part of the problem tomorrow, and that part of the problem later. Don't let problems throw you. Don't be discouraged. And always get help. When you got a little bit of confidence, go to someone who knows something, ask him. Consult. Don't just try to do it all yourself, especially when you can't. Go to others. Talk about it. Ask about it. Get some good advice. Doesn't matter who it is. Just get some good advice. Try your best. Don't be flustered. Every problem can be solved. And if a problem can't be solved, that doesn't mean the end of the project. It may mean you work around it. Just like here, we want to buy land for Mayapura project. Well, there's some problems. For example, somebody already lives there and doesn't want to move. What do? Well, you have to modify your plan. In your plan, you got that person living there. All right. What can you do? Can't be crazy, you know. You got to accomplish something. You can't let things stop you. Usually, when there's a certain kind of person in a meeting who stops things, he's called the stopper. You come up with an idea, maybe a great idea, right? Everybody likes the idea. And then the stopper says, what about this problem? And then everybody goes, my God, we can't answer that. And then the stopper says, throw the whole thing out. It happens all the time. There are people who just get their kicks out of stopping good ideas, stopping inspiration, stopping forward motion, stopping progress. They love it. Because they can't accomplish anything themselves. They can't do anything. They practically never have, but they know how to stop you. You have to be very careful of being stopped by stoppers. And when the stopper does his thing, you tell him, that's a very good problem. we'll have to deal with it, we'll write it down, and we'll get to it, and we'll talk to you again later. But in the meantime, let's go on. You can't let the stopper do it. And that's the same for all kinds of problems that may come to you. Don't let them stop progress. Let it go on, because the problems will work out in due course of time. You will find most problems work out when you get the big vision resolved. When you figure out the main problem, the little problems come on the way. That's why in our social development discussions in Abenteuer and in all my zone there, I refuse to let the devotees bring up I refuse to let the stoppers bring up their problems which stop the whole discussion. Why is there so much divorce in ISKCON, and why is there child abuse, and why is there this, and why is there that? Look, any idiot can think of these things. I can think of these things better than you. But if you just try to stop all progress by saying this, we're not interested. First, we want to solve the big problem, which is how to make things work satisfactorily and prosperously so everybody's happy, and then all these little problems are solved wholesale. Guarantee it. So you have to think big, and just like when you're riding a bicycle. You know the riding bicycle? You all have ridden bicycles, right? When you ride a bicycle, where do you look? How much ahead? And what happens when you look down in front of the wheel? You fall over immediately, isn't it? If you're trying to ride a bike and you're just looking down in front of the wheel, boom, the bike falls over. You're trained to look ahead, and automatically the bike goes. Because the bike going straight, this is not a big deal. This is normal. Similarly, loving your children, caring for them, helping them, these kind of normal things are a big problem in ISKCON today. Because we're looking in front of the wheel. You have to look ahead. Then all these other things come automatically. Guarantee it. So, there will be problems, and they must be resolved. Okay, we accept that. And how you get them resolved is a seminar in itself. So we're not going to get into resolving problems. There are millions of ways you can resolve problems. The basic principle is you should not be afraid of a problem. You should break it down into its integral parts, and you should have a good brain to attack that problem and do it systematically. Take the time to make it work. Be patient, because not everything is going to be solved immediately, and have the big picture, the overall vision, and everything will work out. Then you have to monitor the progress. When you're executing a plan, we already talked about this. Get reports. See how things are going. Understand the whole situation. And then evaluate the progress. Is this what we want to do? Is everybody on course? If they're off course, correct them. If they're off course for a reason, find out what it is and reevaluate the situation. Monitoring and evaluation go hand in hand. Figure out what's going on and evaluate it, and then readjust what's going on according to the evaluation. And it may mean you have to reevaluate your strategy. It may mean like that. I know here in the Mayapura project, I've been personally working on the Mayapura project since 1979. And I know we have gone in many different directions. We've gone this way, we've gone this way, we've gone this way. And whenever we've seen what we've done, we've reevaluated it and put it in another direction. Now we're going in a good direction. But that doesn't mean we're not going to reevaluate it. At any point in time, we can reevaluate our direction and make adjustments. Because if you don't have that freedom, that means whatever, let's say this project were to start 2 generations back. And everyone's thinking, the scheme is absolute. It cannot change. And they're stuck. Let's say we made a mistake 2 generations back. Then that means your whole thing goes off into the Ganga. You have to have the freedom to reevaluate your situation as time goes on. It has to be done by very intelligent, spiritually minded men who have the vision and agree to the vision. We can't change the vision. That comes from Lord Nityananda. That we can't touch. And neither would we want to touch. We'd have to be crazy to touch his vision. It's perfect. But how you get there, we have to have many, many steps. So evaluation goes on and correction when needed. This is a very important aspect. Don't be afraid to correct an improper strategy. Don't be afraid to admit we made a mistake. We did it wrong. How you can present that to others is a communications problem. I know big companies do this all the time. They make huge mistakes. But the people who run the company, it's not their business to figure out how to present it. They have a communications department that figures that out. Lets them worry about the problem. In the meantime, they correct the mistake and make things work properly. Because that's important. Don't be afraid to admit you made a mistake. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to explain the whole thing. Your communications department can do that. Now, in any team, in any plan, you must have a team. Therefore, I want to talk a little bit about team players. Because there are all kinds of players in this world. But they break down into two groups, basically. There's people who will play on a team and people who are loners. You have to watch out not to put loners on a team. There are also other kinds of categories. There's people who will play with the ISKCON team under the GBC as Prabhupada wanted, and there are people who will play with their own team. They may also be team players as long as they're the acharya of their team. We're not talking about that kind of team player here. We're talking about team players who work within the structure of Srila Prabhupada and who are real team players. They like to work with others. There are certain qualities of a team player. They're not a dominator or controller. Now, if you have a team and there's somebody constantly telling everybody on the team what his opinion is without listening to others, this is not a team. Team means teamwork. Teamwork means give and take. A good leader is not a dictator. A dictator is not a good leader. A good leader is somebody who can hear what others say and adjust policies to good ideas that others have and according to others' needs. To simply dictate policies, dictate directions, dictate strategies, it all depends on the quality of that one person. So long that one person has it together, everything's okay. But usually there are many people who aren't satisfied with that. And when that person dies, everything goes completely to hell. Look what happened in Albania when Haksa, whatever his name was, when he died. Complete dictator, everything under his control. Nobody could do nothing except for what he said. And as soon as he died, total chaos in that place. Everybody killing each other, stealing everything, doing all kinds of crazy things. Albania. So dictatorship is not what the leader is. The leader is a team player too. But a good leader doesn't mind taking the position on the team as the leader. It's just his role. Just like on the football squad, you have the captain. He's one of the 11 guys kicking the ball around, but he happens to be taking the role of the leader to help others kick the ball around through the goal, which is the point. So the leader is also a team player, and everybody on the team should also cooperate. They should all be willing to listen to each other. When there's good questions or good points or doubts that have to be dealt with, they want to hear each other, get good ideas from each other, but ultimately there'll be a leader who says what to do, ultimately. Just like, for example, D-Day. You remember D-Day, 1945? Outside, off the coast of France, Eisenhower is sitting in his battleship. And he's surrounded by his team, the chief of staffs. And all Eisenhower did, the only thing he did, was say one word, which was yes. Everything else was done by the chief of staff. He just sat there and listened to them tell him all the plans, all the schemes, the fact that the weather was going bad, it could rain, all the factors about the Nazis losing their supply lines with their petrol, and they could cut them off and finish them. He just sat there and listened. And they said, what should we do? Should we go for it or not? He said, yes. Go for it. And they did D-Day. He sat in the ship, biting his fingernails, I would suppose, and they went and conquered Europe. Leaders, sometimes, that's their role. Presidents do things like that. They have other persons who gather all the research and information, divide up the options of what can be done, give reasons why different options are good and bad. They simply read the whole thing and say, go for 3. They make decisions. Decision making is essential in getting things done on a team. If you have a team where no one can make a decision, then everything doesn't work. Of course, you can do it by vote. But when you do it by vote, it should be a consensus thing. Everybody should buy into it. It should not be 5-4. If you have a 5-4 vote, for instance, you're going to get in trouble. Because 5 thought it was good, 5 thought it was bad. Or 4 thought it was bad. You know, maybe one of those persons leaves later on. Let's say you have a vote, 5-4. Now, 1 year later, 2 of the people who were on the 5 side leave the committee, go somewhere else. And you got 4 people against 2 or 3. They say, now's our chance. Turn it all around. The whole direction changed. This is a very dangerous thing that happens all the time. So sometimes when you have a group or a committee, don't be afraid to make decisions. If you can do it by consensus, fine. And if you have the trust that somebody can do it and make a decision, that's the best thing. But in any case, a leader is part of a team. He doesn't make decisions on his own. Even if he is the decision maker, he doesn't do it on his own. He listens to all the people on the team, give all the information, give all the options, give all the ideas that could be there, gets their recommendations, and then approves. That's a very good way of doing things. And a leader in a team has to respect, not just the leader, everyone in a team has to respect the ideas of others. If you're on a team and you don't respect the others, let's say you're the fullback on the football team, and you don't respect the halfback in front of you. Huh? So when the ball comes to you, you're not going to kick it to him. You're going to kick it over there to the other side of the field because you don't respect that halfback. You think, if I kick that ball to him, he's just going to kick it out of bounds. That's not good at all. You have to have respect for all the team players. Otherwise, the whole thing breaks down. The structure breaks down. Now, there's a problem here that comes up. Let's say that halfback is not a good halfback. Then it's essential for the team to replace him with someone who they can trust and respect. But if the fullback doesn't respect him just because he's envious of him or doesn't understand his good qualities or doesn't like the way he shaves or doesn't like his wife or, so many problems, then the problem's with the attitude of the fullback, and it has to be changed by education and training. So you have to respect the other members of the team for their good ideas and their good qualities. We talked about that before. Another part of a team player is that he sees others' interests as his own. The fullback sees the halfback's interests as his interests because they're all one team. If the halfback gets the ball, kicks it up to the center forward, he kicks it in the goal, that's his interest. That's what the fullback wants. You understand this example of football? So you have to have, everybody has to see that everybody's in it together. We're all in it together. Just like with the GBC Executive Committee, you may have heard in the ISKCON, that I asked them all to come into my room, and I said, I have an idea. If you buy it, and we're all in it together, then I'll agree to be part of it. If you don't buy it, and we're not all in it together, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And when they all said, we're with it, we're all in it together, we fail or we succeed together, then we all said, you know, Three Musketeers put the all for one for all. We're in it. You can be very, very confident of success when you have a team of people who say the success or failure of this project depends on all of us and not just on one of us. Not that it all rises or falls on one person. We're all in it together. That means if there's a weakness, we'll all try to fill it out. If there's a problem, we'll all try to rectify the problem. We'll take our trouble and our time to do it. Not that we just come here, do some blah blah, make some decisions and go away as if, you know, everything will go on automatically without us. We'll take responsibility to make it happen. That's a team. Everybody feels that way on the team. Just like in the football field. When the goalie gets beaten up by the other team member, everybody on that team piles on that guy. They don't think, oh, the goalie, he can fight his own fights. They think that's our goalie. And they get on him. Team, gotta have that spirit. We're in it together. We're a team here. Very important. Willing to change for the sake of the goal. Let's say I'm on a team and I got my idea. And the goal is contradictory to my idea. The goal is more important than my idea. That's the point. And I have to be willing to change my idea for the sake of accomplishing that goal. That is essential. I have to subordinate my ideas for the sake of those goals. Now, if my ideas are better than the goals, then everybody else should respect that, jump on a good thing, and change the goals to my ideas. But that happens rarely. But if it happens, we should be ready to do it. But if what usually happens is my idea is different, my interests are different than the goal of the group. If you want to be a team player, you have to adjust your ideas to the goal, whatever is best for the goal, and that's all that counts. Because you see others' interests as your own. You're not trying to say, my idea is what makes me happy. Why don't you care about me? That's okay, we can care about you. But team players get their satisfaction by seeing the goal accomplished. You understand the difference? That's a little subtle point. Just like when you make the mission of your spiritual master your mission, then almost all your problems go away. And when you've got a mission which is different than your spiritual master's, then so many problems come. You have to subordinate your whole life to the mission of your spiritual master. See his goal as your goal, his interest as your interest. And then you have no more problems. Your whole life is taken care of. Kṛṣṇa takes care of you personally. So that also brings up the point of he does the needful to please Guru and Kṛṣṇa. We just mentioned that. And the last thing is he doesn't mind being accountable to the proper person. Not that we have to be accountable to public opinion, not that we have to be accountable to the anti-cult movement, not that we have to be accountable to so many other parties. But to proper persons, we have to be accountable too. It's like everything's accountable to the GBC. Or in a team, we have to be accountable to the coach. Or in a business, you have to be accountable to the accounting department or to the efficiency expert or whatever, I don't know. So you don't mind being accountable when it's a proper authority. You don't mind telling them what you're doing. You don't mind them asking questions. You don't mind because you know you're clean. And if you're not clean, then you will mind. And then the person you're accountable to should figure it out and correct it. Now, if somebody is not a team player, because as we mentioned in the beginning, there are team players and not team players. There are people who play on the team and like it, and there are people who never play on a team. There's the stopper and other guys like that who like to destroy teams. There's also people who like to cause interpersonal conflict. They'll figure out how to set this one against that one. In meetings, I've seen people, they just love to do that. Or in private. They like to divide people. They get great kicks out of dividing people, causing trouble between people. So these are not team players. These are people with twisted minds. So such a person, if you find him on your team, then there are a couple of things you can do. I have 3 things down here. You can probably think of more. You could isolate him so that he does not adversely affect the others on the team. You could give him a job. Let's say the job is to go to Kathmandu and open an ice cream parlor, you know, somewhere near Mount Everest, and be totally in charge of that. That's one way to isolate him. Or to get him to write a book on the efficiency of widgets in the lower differential of various Tata trucks in India. That's not the best way to do it because you're just wasting time, but that you could do that. Another way to do it, which is more straightforward, is just remove him from the team. Everybody gets together and tells him, sir, you're not working here. It's not right what you're doing. You're not a team player. And then he'll tell, no, I am a team player. I do this and that. And you have to say, no, you've done this and that. We all feel you're not a team player. We don't want your participation. You have to be straightforward. Sometimes that's required to get a person out of a team which is screwing up the team or is not efficient on the team. Or you could train the person. You could train the person. That takes a little more time and patience. And if the person is capable of being trained, this is the superior option. The superior option is to train a person to do it right. Teach him how to work with a team. Teach him how to stop being egocentric. Teach him how to stop making trouble for others. Teach him how to be friendly with others, cooperative with others, compatible with others. Train him. That's the best thing. This brings another point up. People make mistakes. Managers make mistakes. Sometimes they make big mistakes. Sometimes people will say, remove that person. He made a mistake. Now, let's put it frankly. Who hasn't made a mistake in this world? Nobody's never made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. That's natural. In the material world, you got to make mistakes. No endeavor is free from fault, Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad Gita. Every endeavor is covered by fault as fire is covered by smoke. So what do you do when you find a fault? You correct it. Failure is the pillar of success. Just because someone makes a mistake doesn't mean you drag him down. You correct him. You teach him. You have patience with him for some time. If the person cannot be corrected, cannot learn, does not understand what he's doing wrong, cannot accept the other person's distress, then remove him. But don't just remove first. Correct first. Then, if that's not possible, then remove. Don't be afraid to correct. Don't be afraid to remove. Because things have to be done. Getting the mission accomplished is the most important thing. People are important too, but if somebody else's importance is causing other people pain, then we have to consider the larger group. We care about the individuals, but like Prabhupada used to say, we give freedom of religion, but if my religion is to cut your throat, we cannot allow that to happen. If my freedom and my individuality means that I cause you pain, we can't allow that to happen. We have to protect everybody. We have to consider the group first, and the individuals within the group. If you can also look at it as the individuals first, and then the group will come automatically. But if you have one individual who's causing chaos in the group, naturally you'll have to see the group's interest and take care. Just like to save the body, you cut an arm. To save a family, you cut a family member. To save a village, you cut a family. To save a state, you cut the village. When you have to save higher principles, you can cut or sacrifice a lower principle. We don't like to do that, but this is just pragmatic management principle. That's all. Okay. It's 12 o'clock. Wow. I've been through, my God, one page. Are you getting anything out of this? Yes. You're just saying it. Niranjan Maharaj, you always tell me the truth. Huh?
I think you're getting bogged down in the details. You're not covering all the points that you wanted to cover.
The problem is that every one of these points implies so many things. Like if I just say you got to be a team player, and everybody will say, yeah, 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 and walk out of here thinking we got to be team players, but then they don't know what that means, you know. So I get stuck on the points. I know, you're right, it's a fact. It's terrible. This could go on for days. I don't want to go on for days. I got other things to do.
Can you make the list available to us?
This?
Yeah.
I can give you the file. You can do whatever you like with it. Huh? You think I should?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's next, coming up next. How to deal with meetings. This means the roles of the conveners, the chairman, the secretary. Huh? What? Got to do it. Uh-huh. Okay. And then there's general dealings with others. Huh? What book? I'm not writing a book, because I just wrote an outline. What I usually do is I just speak something, all these ideas come out, they transcribe it, then I get the transcription, and then I move things around, fill things in, add things out, make them into chapters, and then a book happens. I'm too lazy to sit down and write a book. And also this gets out all the subjects. When you're sitting there writing, things get very compact. When you're speaking, they spread out and fluff out, you know? It's 12 o'clock. Do you mind sitting here for a half hour more, or? You don't mind? You don't mind?
How about a 5-minute break?
5 minutes break. Okay, great. All right, well. I reserve... You know what I was thinking of doing? Since meetings is a thing in and of itself, that's very important, how to deal with meetings, I think I'll do that tomorrow. Let's say we do this tomorrow at 10 o'clock. How's that?
Yeah.
We'll just do meetings tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And then today we'll go to general dealings with others, because that's more like in the mood of what we've been talking about so far. Ma Vishnu, tell them to come in. Okay, so now in general dealings with others, there are certain things. Some of them I've already talked about in other aspects, but I'll repeat them again because it's good to have them all in one section. So repetition of a good point is not bad. So just don't mind if that happens. So in general dealings with others, now this is from the point of view of a leader. It's very different how you deal with people as a leader and how you deal with people as a regular person or as a friend. Like I know for me, for example, when I'm dealing with friends, I put aside all my critical thinking. I put aside my goal-oriented, task-oriented mind. I put aside my pushing and time-bound everything. I just sit down and talk with them whatever they want to talk. We just talk about friends, friendly things, interesting things, whatever. Now sometimes that leads into subject matters which become time-bound and goal-bound and task-oriented and, you know, critical analysis and all that. But I never go into a relationship like that. As a person, I like to deal with people first as friends and people first. But if I have something to do, a job, a task to be done, and I'm the leader to get it done, then I think differently. This is not bad. It is just practical. And what I think of first is, try to capture the minds of others. They buy into the vision and want to work with you. Because that's the first and foremost thing you got to do as a leader, is to get people to buy into your vision so they want to work with you. It's very bad if you appoint people to work with other people who don't really want to do it. They don't accept the vision of that person. They don't buy what that person's doing. That means there's going to be struggles, there's going to be problems, there's going to be conflicts. But that's obvious. All of you understand that point immediately. But when you've got a team that's working with you because they want to, they like what you're doing, they like your idea, they like your vision, they are inspired by it, they agree with it, it has become their vision too, then you've got a team that's going to really work. And with such a team, you can do anything. It's because it's got great power. So the first thing the leader has to do is to capture the imagination of those he wants to work with. Capture their imagination, capture their hearts, capture their desires. Capturing is the first thing. And then, when they agree with you completely, you don't have to capture them anymore. That capturing process is simply there to bring them on board, which means you may not say everything about everything in that one discussion. You're not going to bring up problems, you're not going to criticize, you're not going to get into this and that. You're simply concentrated on this one task, which is to share your vision with others and get them to buy into it and agree with you and work with you. A leader has to build a team like this. Nothing. You can build wonderful teams if you have just simply a good idea. You know Microsoft? Microsoft was a nothing company. But they had a good idea called MS-DOS, which was the most junky operating system you could imagine. But with that one good idea and nobody to make it work, they got IBM to buy into it, and they are now what they are today from that. So simply a good idea can make everything happen. There are many examples of that, of people who just had one good idea and an empire developed from it. So you'd start off with the idea, the vision, and you bring people together with it. So that's the first thing in dealing with others. Then what do? When you've got your good idea and you know it's going to work and you're confident with it and you think you got the right thing, then you go out and meet others. You establish contacts and make friends. Now, this sounds very much like business, but it's only similar because we use the same words to describe it, but it's completely different. When I establish contacts with devotees, I'm not doing it because I think they're going to give me profit later on. I do it because I think they're going to be engaged later on in something exciting and wonderful so we can work together to do something fantastic for the sake of Srila Prabhupada. It's a different idea completely. It's non-fruitive. I don't get anything out of it except satisfaction. That's what makes it different between business and devotional. But, unfortunately, the process is basically the same. Just like sadhana bhakti is the same for the Mayavadi and for the Vaishnava. It's just what happens when you do it that's different. So the procedure by which you develop your vision and build your team is by establishing contacts. Anyone you meet who's got even a vague possibility of being part of a team sometime in the future, you start cultivating. Let's say you think this person could work for you 5, 10 years later. Okay, you just start talking to them, establish contact with them, let them know what you're doing. Just start getting them involved a little bit. You can do it faster or slower according to your time scale. But just let them know that you're there, you like what he's doing, or you like him, or you like his qualities. There's a possibility for him. You don't have to say what. If If he asks, you can certainly tell him. Sometimes you go to people and you say, hey, we got a place for you here. Yeah. But I know that you're doing something else right now. But anyway, if you're ever not doing something or you might want to change, or you might want to talk to me about something, I'm always there. I'm always available. You want my phone number? Here it is. You want my email number? Here it is. I'm always available for you. Whatever you want, I will work with you on. I will communicate with you. Take personal responsibility to develop these contacts. Now, when a person says to you, I want to be part of this, then you can call up, your department head. Then he comes in, and you sit there while the two of them talk, and at one point you say, okay, you guys work it out. Everything's great. Whatever you need, just let me know. But the initial contact, somebody's got to be talent hunting all the time, looking for new people who can do things, looking for people who can be trained up, looking for people you can work with, always making contacts. You have no idea what will happen in the future. This whole Mayapura management scheme and development is basically made of contacts which were made over a long period of time. Some of them just walked in the door and said, I want to be part. We also jumped on them. Lagora Shaki was one of them. He just walked in the door one day and said, engage me. I said, great. Other persons, they were developed over some period of time, gradually brought into the process, gradually given bigger positions, more responsibility, like that. It doesn't matter. If Kṛṣṇa sends you a person, grab them. See a good opportunity, recognize it, take it. And if you have to cultivate it over a long period of time, do it. You have no idea what will happen. You may be very happy in the future. And don't think, oh, this person's a householder doing a business, and he's entangled making money. He'll never work in the Sankirtan ministry. But if the person's got the qualities, if he's got the brain, if he's got the possibility, one day he may take sannyas. One day he may move to where you are and take over the management of your ministry. You have no idea how fate works. It's incredible how people are brought together sometimes by the plan of the Lord. The Lord has this all figured out. Kṛṣṇa has the whole plan already figured out, how ISKCON is going to take over the world. Right now we can't even take over a temple. We have no idea how to manage a temple. But Kṛṣṇa has a plan which you will not be able to believe. I'm sure of it. And Kṛṣṇa will arrange that that plan gradually happens, with or without you. But if you are part of Kṛṣṇa's plan, and you act as an instrument through which Kṛṣṇa can work, then you will get the credit. Which is what Kṛṣṇa told Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Nimitta matram bhavya savya sachin. I use you as my tool. Maya nihitam purvameva. These men are already dead, with or without you. But you, I am choosing as my tool to get this done, so you will get the credit. If you take this part, the role up, and take this responsibility up, you will get the credit. And Kṛṣṇa wants you to get the credit. Kṛṣṇa has a place for you. Kṛṣṇa has a plan for you. We just have to connect with the energy of the Lord and capture that plan. And do it, and everything will happen. There's no doubt about it. So, don't think that some endeavor you make, even if it takes years to do it, is a waste of time. Sometimes these little tiny things that are going on for years make big, big results. That's a fact. Or relationships you've made over long periods of time. I know people who I just were friendly with for years. When I finally figured out how to use them nicely in Kṛṣṇa's service, and don't think that's a utilitarian way to do it, it helps them too. But when I finally figured out their gifts and what they can give,